Okay, so today's the day SEIA is hosting the largest ever lobby day we've had here in Washington.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And combined with that, one of the biggest industry sign-on letter we've ever had, 1,700 companies sort of adding their name to a list of folks who want to make sure that we preserve the clean energy tax credits that are currently on the books, and just a sort of army of folks across the spectrum, investors, manufacturers, installers, et cetera, telling that story to policymakers, and I think it's going to be pretty impactful.
Yeah, 14 different power players here in DC, led by SEIA, organizations like CRESS, BCSC, other trade associations like ACOR, coming with us down to Capitol Hill to have these critically important conversations right now today.
Yep.
We were able to bring in a few of our members over the last couple of days to talk about the impacts of these critically important federal policies on their companies.
Yeah. Some really interesting stories across the spectrum, from sort of the manufacturing side to the residential installers, and just really bringing it down to the impact, right? Like, I think that's what a lobbying conversation is at the end of the day. I think a lot of people sort of think of lobbying as this sort of dark, smoky room, and there's sort of a mystery behind the curtain. But at the end of the day, it's talking about the impacts that a company is having on the communities that they serve, and on their workforce. And there's so many great stories to tell in this industry along those lines. We heard about installations on universities, and we heard about low-income communities in Philadelphia, and just all across the spectrum of the ways that our industry is making a difference. And I think that's what drives change, is hearing those anecdotes in person. So
and maybe not most importantly, but the single most the use case for a federal policy like the Inflation Reduction Act, which we call the American Clean Energy Incentives right now, is to drive a U.S. manufacturing industry here in the United States. So when we talk about that U.S. manufacturing renaissance, that's what we're talking about. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of companies actually create business models where they're creating domestically produced solar products here in the United States for the first time. So the way the industry looks now compared to just 5 years ago is night and day. So bottom line is those policies worked, and our members are here in DC to tell their story about how that is.
Yeah, and there was a lot of optimism too. I think you'll hear from all these folks that the future is bright. I think there's a lot of reason to be continuing to grow and continuing to look ahead to the future and what folks can build. And so I think just bringing that positive energy about, like you said, these policies are working as intended, and they're driving real impact and change for a lot of folks around the country. And so I think it goes to show, like, these conversations are important, and we need to make sure that it doesn't stop at a lobby day like this. And that's part of why we wanted to bring these folks onto the podcast here and share some of those stories with everybody here. So I hope everyone keeps the conversation going.
And then I get the benefit of that membership level, engaging in all of the policy committees, and coming out for Lobby Day, which is why I'm here today. And I'm really looking forward to our time on the Hill.
That's awesome.
I love it. I would love to dig in. I mean, obviously, you laid the land really nicely.
Yes.
For some of your background. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what you're going to share on Capitol Hill today, and how the impact of American Clean Energy has affected your company and the people that work there.
Absolutely. And I've done a lot of thinking about this, obviously, and talked to my other peers in the policy space. And the great thing about SEIA is there is such great alignment with the policy teams, regardless of what vertical you're working in. And Colin, you had asked at the top of our discussion about how solar fits into what Scale is doing. Obviously, a critical component. I think we have to sort of step back for policymakers. And I always remind my peers, when I have the opportunity to take business partners with me into meetings like this, I think the expectation for so many people that don't do what we do on a daily basis is to walk in and to meet with staff or a member and assume that they know all the things. Right. And the best part about me being a government relations professional is that I'm in an education role. Obviously, advocacy when needed. I always try to maintain those relationships in a way that I'm not there asking for something every time. It's about building the rapport, doing education. And so, again, to get back to the question at hand, our policymakers are not familiar with what a microgrid is. The general public is not familiar with what a microgrid is.
Tell us what it is.
So it's obviously we have a variety of distributed energy resources that we can build together to really optimize a solution for a customer that has energy needs. And at scale, really our motto is cleaner, cheaper, faster. And we do a lot of work in California, other key markets for us, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut. These are markets I've worked in my whole career in energy. We're seeing obviously high prices. We're seeing energy prices. We're seeing a continued bottleneck with interconnection. Timelines are just pushing farther and farther out, and it is impacting our customers, potential customers' ability to continue to grow and do business. So we really see ourselves as a solution. One of the things I'm going to talk about today is a concept that we've started to socialize called Bring Your Own Power. And so there's a lot of secret sauce, obviously, with microgrids, but a lot of folks don't realize that in combination with solar panels, with battery storage, with natural gas generation backup, with fleet charging, microgrids have the smart technology of a switchgear and the ability to island should the grid go down. And so a lot of our customers are really that resilience component is critically important. Obviously, we have a green technology in many cases. Not every system is the same. I think our CEO, Ryan Goodman, would like more of that, but each customer brings unique needs. But overall, we have customers in the cold storage space, agricultural processing. And one thing I wanted to highlight today, given, of course, SEIA and our nation's capital, we have a really neat, fully functioning multi-asset system on Gallaudet University.
Oh, great.
Oh,
And yes,
cool.
and so the Public Service Commission hosted an event there, and we got to take staff to see the guts of the system, and we're very proud of that system, and we'd like to do more, obviously, in the education space. We have a great project that we're about to break ground on in Connecticut, which is a fuel cell thermal loop project. We have agreements, with the two main utilities as off-takers and a number of private entities that will be using that to benefit their energy supply. So there's a lot of application for this, but it is somewhat of a new concept from a technological standpoint, and we need to do a better job at scale, but also our industry within the industry is small but mighty, and I am always looking for ways to partner with those that are doing what we're doing in a slightly different way. And there's room for all of us, especially when it comes to educating policymakers.
Yeah, totally. Well, that sort of segues to what I'm really excited to ask you about, which is some of the work you're doing around data centers and sort of the tech boom. You all have released some work lately on the speed and scale. You sort of named the faster, cheaper sort of hallmarks that as the tech industry is growing rapidly, the need for electricity is obviously skyrocketing. And you've done some interesting thinking at scale about how, prioritizing solar microgrids and microgrids in general can be a real win-win solution for powering those facilities, but sort of bypassing some of the permitting headaches that can come with larger generation. So would just love to hear about that element of your work lately as well.
Yeah, that's been talked about within the company for some time. I think you're aware, and it is public. We're very excited about our newest investor in scale, EQT. And they have some great expertise and existing investments in this space, particularly around data centers and AI. So it's given scale the opportunity to start to think bolder about how we connect those solutions with this growing need. I think you've referenced a little bit in our past conversation, Duncan Campbell, who's one of the OGs at scale, And he's done a lot of thinking about this, and recently co-wrote a white paper around this as a potential solution. So when I'm on the Hill today, we have adjusted our messaging in terms of, obviously we have a new administration, and we want to make sure that we are connecting with members where they are and painting a picture for them about what potential solutions are. I get a lot of questions around, the security of the grid, the security of our customers' energy source. Obviously, cost continues to be an issue with the rising cost of electricity, but this idea about how are we going to further support these growing power needs around data and AI? I mean, we're not going back. And I remember when I first started in the industry, and somebody gave me the analogy of renewables and what we're doing to support this next generation of clean energy. Uber's not going away.
Right.
Airbnb is not going away. I mean, we have had the standard for so long, but this is the beauty of innovation. And if we can build a better mousetrap, we should continue to do that. So see where we are here is a real tipping point, and I think getting to the point where we can make that business study work for a data center to really decide that this is right for all of the reasons is exciting. So going back to the bring your own power, deployment time for microgrids, we estimate at 2 to 4 years versus 3 to 5 years with current permitting delays.
Right.
So cutting that timeline is critically important. And very cost effective. We compare what we can do to support new generation for a data center and AI, and we look at the discussion about bringing nuclear back. And certainly there's a role for all of us in an above all energy strategy, but we think we're poised in terms of timing and being able to meet customer demand much more quickly than a traditional channel. So we're excited about that. And with the partnership with EQT, we think there's a really good path forward.
Yeah. Well, I think it's such an important story to tell, because I think for a long time we've talked about solar and clean energy as a solution to climate challenges, which they obviously are.
Absolutely.
But I think sort of broadening that scope of what the problems that we can solve. We can solve the AI challenge and the need for electricity. We can solve those reliability and resilience challenges. And so just continuing to sort of offer up microgrids and solar and these solutions as ways to tackle some of the challenges that folks up on the Hill are trying to tackle that have less and less to do with climate, but there are all sorts of things that we can talk about with them. So glad to have you bring that message.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, when people ask what I do, and I say, well, I'm a lobbyist. Well, what do you lobby for? And I said, well, all sorts of things. But, for the last 10 years, it's been energy. And then before that, healthcare and financial services. And I sort of put that into the bucket of these are the things that impact people's daily lives and things that people take for granted. And we know when we flip on the light switch, we expect it to happen. And then when we have these terrible natural disasters and you find out that, a hospital or police station, emergency responders are still able to operate in these times of crisis because they have emergency backup, they have battery storage. I mean, these are the things that remind you about why you do what you do.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's an exciting time, and the technology continues to improve, and obviously, cost is a factor. Companies are looking at their bottom line. And so it really is this mix between resilience, between cost, between sustainability. But really, they're running a race to try to get what they need to be able to continue to power their businesses. So we're excited to be part of that.
Anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we cover?
I just want to thank SEIA for all the great work. I mean, really, I can't do my job without the association. And it's been, Abby and I started about the same time. I think I was in the industry for about a year before Abby came on board. And I'm really just so impressed with the growth in terms of this tripling of the staff, tripling of the budget. I mean, I know there have been some challenging times for the industry, and we're not out of the woods, but you probably wrote this, Colin, but recently, something that got posted about SEIA stood out to me about how much we've grown. And after, the initial Trump administration, we got through that, even with all of the changes and the unknowns. And certainly Vivint Solar had a fantastic exit, and I lobbied through that. And so I am very bullish about the industry, and we're not going back. So we just have to keep forward it. And I think our role as government relations leaders is to make sure that policymakers understand what we're doing, what the application is, and that clean energy should not be a partisan issue. This is about bringing the best of what we can to support our businesses that are looking for solutions. So thanks for having me. Thanks for all the great work, and I'm excited for our time on the Hill today.
Yeah, we'll go kick some butt up there. We're excited.
I'm ready. Got my kicks on.
Awesome.
That's crazy. When you really 3,000 jobs in the United States, what percentage of that would you say, 12-year-old company, what percentage of that what percentage of that 3,000 has come online in the past 5 years?
Oh, nearly all of it, right?
That's
in the last
amazing.
5 years. I mean, you figure we were, we just founded the company, Andrew founded the company, 12 years ago. So it's been an exponential growth, right? So I joined the firm in 2019, and I think we've grown by over tenfold in the last 5 years.
You're here in town for a lobby day that we're organizing tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about what I mean. You've walked us through some of it, but what your story is going to be to policymakers tomorrow. What's on the line for you at GameChange?
Yeah, so this is interesting. Being here in Washington is new for me. This is not something that GameChange has really spent a lot of time or effort on. In fact, mostly we focused on the engineering, the tracker, the technology, manufacturing, basically reducing the cost of solar. That's our vision, and that's how we figure we grow this business. So with the new administration, obviously there's a lot of concern on policy and what that means for industry. So we really ramped up our efforts. So although I'm here for Lobby Day, this is far from my first trip to Washington this year.
Well, good.
So I think I've already met face-to-face with 12 separate congressional leaders on the Republican side. Obviously, that's our focus right now. And really, it's about education and making sure that they understand the value that solar brings to the economy. So I look at this, and this is one thing that I don't feel should ever be a partisan issue in terms of it is clean energy, it is cost effective, it adds to our energy independence. We are building the product in the U.S. These are, again, our steel manufacturing jobs. And I said we've got approximately 3,000 people making the product. But if I just look at GameChange projects, there's over 15,000 people a year that are building those jobs. Those are obviously employed by our EPCs and the developers. But so, I mean, these are good paying jobs, creating energy that we need to generate, that's both clean and cost effective. So I just really feel it's just a win-win-win, and that's what we're here communicating.
Sounds like a slam dunk to me.
I would think so too. Yeah.
It's interesting because we talk a lot at SEIA about solar being the fastest, cleanest, cheapest energy to deploy, and I kind of want to tie back to your brand, GameChange, because when you think about solar and American energy independence and the kind of impact this technology can have to stand up and keep the lights on around the country, what was the inspiration behind your brand and how you think about the what you're producing for the American people?
So Andrew has a very clear vision, which is to repower the planet, and that is with clean solar energy. And our contribution to that is we work very hard to reduce the cost. And what does that mean, to reduce the costs, right? It means to deliver the best levelized cost of energy, right? And that means the upfront cost of the tracker has to be really cost effective. The installation has to be really fast and efficient. The long-term O&M costs need to be reasonable, right? And I'm saying they're already low by the nature of what a solar is, and we want to try and be even better. But there's good paying jobs to maintain these solar sites for the next 30 and 40 years that they're going to operate. And then lastly, advanced technology where we're going to increase that energy harvest, right, with the given capital you have. So with smart features, so whether that be with power boost to get the most out of roto-row tracking or weather smart, so that we, even on hazy days, we get the most out of it. Weather smart and being able to go into smart stow based on wind temperatures or wind speeds. So all of those pieces it's just what we have a passion for. And I think it's a lot of the people, almost all the people in GameChange have a passion for it.
Has that evolved at all over time? Like, has there been more of a buy-in as the industry has grown and matured? And I'd also love to hear sort of what the conversations within your company have been like over the last few months, as you've been, as you said, kind of gearing up to have more of a presence on policy in Washington, and kind of how that's going amongst your workforce.
Yeah, I think that vision has really been consistent for as long as I've been at GameChange. There's been an incredible focus on the engineering, the technology, and cost. And we just realized that that's part of the value proposition we offer. So I'd say that's nothing new for us. And nothing about any of the policy changes of really like, oh, now we got to be cost conscious. That's in our DNA, right? That's very much in our DNA. Yeah, clearly within the organization, there's a lot of concern and interest in what's going on the policy side. And I think there's probably a bit of policy today that it's way more interesting to talk about the extremes of what could happen and what if this happens, right? It's not good ratings, right? Think about for the news programs, right? The news cycle to say, like, you know what, President Trump didn't devastate solar in his first term. He probably won't devastate it in his second term. And I think he does.
And in fact, it grew.
Yes, exactly, right? So, but that doesn't make a great news story, right? Well, and we're cognizant right now that with some of the budget challenges that the administration has in terms of their objectives, that there's a number of cost-cutting things that have to occur. I don't think solar is number one, but I think we would be naive to think that there's not some risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you're here with us telling these stories to policymakers. I think, as you said, it's absolutely critical, and it's really cool to see the evolution of a company like yours, and we're glad that you're flying the good flag with us here this week, and appreciate your time. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to make sure our listeners know about you or about GameChange? No,
I mean, I think the main thing is, we really feel like this is a good thing for both sides, for both parties. It's good for the American people. As long as I'm on this thing, I just basically probably say thank you to our customers, our developers, and the EPCs that put so much trust in us. We couldn't be successful without them, and we're committed to making sure they're successful.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Yep.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You're 9 months in. What's been the most surprising thing that you've learned joining, I guess, coming into the clean energy space? You've been in energy writ large for a long time, but what have you learned in your first 9 months?
The renewables world is so different. And although in my previous role, there was renewables development, but working for a developer is so exciting. You get to see a project grow literally from the ground up. And I get to work with our development team and help them build out strategies as they work with landowners, regulators, federal agencies with permitting, and really seeing a project all the way through from the greenfield stage to development and then operations. So it's been really exciting. In the renewable development space, things move very quickly. Yeah. You have to be adaptable and flexible, and it's really challenged me professionally in a way that I'm super excited about the work we do, and I learn something new every day.
That's the dream.
Yeah. Like there's no boring days at all.
That's for sure. I can agree with that.
Especially today and tomorrow. You're here for Lobby Day.
Yes.
Tell us how it's going in Washington. What are you here to do for SEIA's largest lobby day ever? Tell us a little bit
Which
about
is
it.
super exciting. We had some time with our footprint members today. We had some one-on-one meetings. There's a lot of overlap with the meetings that SEIA is also targeting for Lobby Day, and I'm excited about the energy that we're bringing to the Hill tomorrow. And I warned the offices. I was like, get ready. We're coming.
Good. Primed them.
Yes. And there's a lot of us. But I do think that our message is strong and that, there's value in what this industry has been able to do, not only for clean energy, but for energy across the board and grid reliability. Mm-hmm. And I think the growth of this industry is evident, and the benefit of the energy incentives that have been enacted over the years is only adding to that value. So I think they will hear our message loud and clear.
Mm-hmm. So you work in policy within your company, obviously. Do you feel like what you just described and the conversations that you're going to have tomorrow are is that understood within the whole of the company that you work in? Like, do folks see sort of the impact of policy on the business and connect those dots?
We spend a lot of time talking about how policy impacts our day-to-day. Our CEO, Dahl, he takes policy very seriously. He has made it very clear to our entire company that, regardless of the policy outcomes, we're well-positioned because we've spent the time focused on strategy, building relationships, and making sure that we've developed good projects that can be adaptable to policy changes. Yeah. So I think it's very clear across the board that policy is a critical part of what we do. We're part of a highly regulated industry, but policy has transformed the way we've been able to do business over the years. So I think that's very clear.
That's good.
What do you think the effect on people has been of these policies over the last few years?
Yeah.
Is there anything you can say about the way it's influenced your company's ability to grow, how you work in the community, anything in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, SEIA has some great data that's come out recently about jobs and the number of manufacturing and construction jobs that have been the result of the growth of the solar energy industry and the direct byproduct of these energy investments that we're seeing. So, I think what we've been able to do as an industry is the direct result of these investments and companies taking full advantage of them. I know our leadership team is excited about the prospects of domestic manufacturing. Being able to grow our supply chain here in the U.S. is going to be important, not just for us as a company or as an industry, but just for our competitiveness as a country overall. So I do think Primergy has seen benefits, the industry has seen benefits, but also the nation is seeing a lot of benefits. And I heard a phrase today in one of my meetings on the Hill. They were like, oh, solar jobs are construction jobs. And I think it's starting to resonate more broadly, just the impact that the industry is having on construction and other industries that we use to develop these projects.
I also want to ask you about Texas. I don't know if our listeners could tell, but you've got a bit of a Texas accent.
I can't escape it. I try.
So the focus this week is on Capitol Hill here in Washington, and we're talking a lot about federal policy, which is obviously critical, but the states have a role to play too.
Absolutely.
So what's happening down in the great state of Texas? Anything that we should know about?
The great state of Texas, where I think the solar industry is growing there too. I hate to say that we're number 2 in anything, but Texas is the second largest solar state in the U.S. And I think energy policy will continue to be a focus of the legislature this session. Conversations that I've had, people have questions still. I think people are talking about, how growth in demand will impact the state of Texas. It's a growing state. It's a thriving state. It's a great state for business. And all of that means we're going to need more power. And we know that solar and storage is a part of that solution. We can build solar and storage projects quickly. They're cost effective. And, they help with reliability. There have been reports that have come out over the last year that talked about the summer months in Texas, where you've seen fewer emergency calls for conservation because you now have more solar and storage online. So I think that message is starting to get out there. And as long as we remain consistent and in front of the legislature and talking about the success of our industry, I am very hopeful that renewables will continue to grow and thrive as policies evolve. I will say I received some advice from a state legislator. He said, people have to know who you are. They have to know what you all are doing in their districts, the jobs that you're bringing to their districts, but also how these projects are helping us secure the grid. So I know SEIA's having a lobby day in Texas in a couple of weeks. We'll be there for that as well.
Great.
We have our Ash Creek project in Texas. It's in Hill County, 408 megawatts, will power 22,000 homes. And we're just excited to tell Primergy's story in Texas and share the same message with the legislature.
That's great.
But there will be no shortage of issues this session.
Yeah.
I do know that the lieutenant governor, he noted that grid reliability would be a priority for him this session. So we'll be paying close attention to that. And then I know there's also a focus on AI data center growth and what that could mean for power demand.
I heard you say earlier about just kind of the trickle-down effect when a company like yours does really well, what effect that can have on the community. And I think you have a couple examples of some of the work you've done.
Yeah.
Would you mind walking us through a couple of those?
Sure. So the first example I'll share is with our Gemini project. We developed in partnership with the Moapa Band of Paiutes, which is a local tribe to the area. We were able to develop an apprentice program. So we had apprentices on site working directly on the project, learning the skill and the trade of construction and operations. And we had a tribal liaison that was a consultant to our team that entire time. So being able to build that relationship, we were able to, obviously build the project, develop a great partnership, but also help develop skills and tools that they will be able to use going forward and develop a successful career in this industry. Also, with our Ash Creek project, we recently had an exciting opportunity with Solve Energy, and we partnered with Heart of America, which is a nonprofit organization that renovates schools.
Awesome.
We were able to work with Penelope ISD and Abbott ISD, which are the school districts where our project is located, to help stock up their new science lab with all of the supplies that they needed. We provided some beautification to the campus. And then for Penelope ISD, we completely remodeled their elementary school library and also their gymnasium that had not been renovated for decades. So it was an incredible opportunity. The entire Primergy team and Solve teams were invested. We had about 35 people from Primergy attend. And I know Solve had a similar number of employees attend to support those events. And, we made sure we shared this information with our stakeholders. So school board representatives were there, state and local elected officials were there, and then also Congressman Jake Elzy had a representative from his office there. So it was really important that we got the entire community involved in that opportunity.
That's so great.
So exciting to see the real local impact that the good work and success of a company can have in a community.
Yeah. And if you all could have heard the screams of those elementary kid students when they saw that gym for the first time, it was absolutely incredible. And our CEO was able to be there, and a number of our leadership team members were there, and they could really feel the importance of this event and how valuable it was for the community.
Yeah, it speaks to what the message you shared from the Texas legislator that, encouraging folks to tell that story, right?
Yes.
Like make sure that policymakers understand that it isn't just about, panels going up in fields. It's actually impacting people's lives in these communities.
Absolutely.
And, when you think of solar, you should think of schools and county budgets and all that kind of stuff. It's huge.
And so, the landowners that we work with for that project, I have to give a huge shout out to our development team that's been working on that project, and they have an incredible relationship with them. Their kids go to that school. So they were like, I know about that project. I've heard about this project. So they're connecting the dots that like you see the solar development in your community. This is the direct result of that. And so Solve had a really great idea of creating what's called a good energy corner. So they have
the name.
Ideal. Rings a bell. But they have a solar panel installed in front of the school that powers a battery inside of the library where they will learn about the project. And they get to see firsthand exactly how electricity is generated from solar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there anything that we haven't asked you that you'd want to share with our listeners?
I have to compliment SEIA. You all have done an incredible job working not only with your member companies, but I think with all of the clean trade associations to make sure that we are very clear about our message, that we are well established with our relationships, regardless of who is in leadership. So I think that's so important. And I know our CEO, Ty, values our membership of this organization. I just want to thank you all for being strategic and forward thinking and forcing us to get out and tell our story because it is the district stories. It's the real tangible impact on constituents that I think will help us bring our message home.
Do you follow up with your customers after a period of time to see how those installations have actually affected their lives?
Yeah, we do. We track their savings, and it's something that we can look at when we see their production, their energy bills, and we get customer inbound all the time asking questions about it, and we're always looking for ways to be more proactive at telling customers, here's kind of what you're saving. But it is something that we really try to do, and it's it's really impactful when you look at what we've done in some of the programs, like in Connecticut with the Connecticut Green Bank for their Solar for All program. This started back in 2015. And so we have now almost a decade at this point of customers who have seen those savings. And those savings have just grown every single year there to the point where they're saving over $1,000 on average for a lot of those early Connecticut customers. And it's really, really impactful. We just actually back in September, held an event in New Haven with customers of ours that were in this neighborhood. It's such a great little neighborhood with a lot of PosiGen customers. Some are older, some have just signed up in the last year or two with us. And so it was really cool comparing their individual stories, and we had their savings on a printout there, and it was just something that was really cool, and all the neighbors are seeing it, and everyone's getting excited, and it was really good.
That's awesome. Well, so you're obviously here in Washington for sort of federal lobbying. What is your message to lawmakers today? What do you want to make sure that they come away knowing about PosiGen or about sort of the impact of federal policy on your customers?
Yes, I mean we've been trying to share our story because we do think it's unique. The areas that we cover are not some of the areas that people generally think of when it comes to solar. And so that's a really cool story to be able to tell when we're in West Virginia and we're in Louisiana and Mississippi. And so it's something that people find really compelling. And so the couple of like key topics that we tend to discuss in these meetings is number one is energy affordability. That's on top of everyone's mind right now. And so being able to show what we've done and how solar plays a big part of that and energy efficiency as well, that's really compelling and something that cuts across the partisan spectrum. The second thing that we really focus on is the domestic manufacturing. That's something that we're really proud of. We've been using American-made panels for a while, but now seeing all the inputs into those panels being onshored as well, and the inverters and the racking, to the point where the projects we're installing today, all of those major components are made in the United States, which 2-3 years ago was unthinkable. So that's something that we try to stress, that this is providing not just the economic development for the households, but it's also the communities, it's the jobs in those manufacturing plants across the country. And then the third is really kind of resilience. And that's something that, rooftop solar and especially with storage can provide that folks want to hear about. They're interested in how you can power through hurricanes. We have a lot of experience at seeing how these systems perform in those extreme weather. And then also just seeing, more generally, how can we use these assets as grid assets and virtual power plants? And so there's a lot of really interesting things. And the resilience piece, I think, is, especially with Louisiana, Mississippi delegation that we talk to a lot, that's something they notice. I mean, we had one meeting with a senator who mentioned after Hurricane Ida, flying over in a helicopter and seeing, and he made a note to us in the meeting, was like, hey, all the roofs that had solar, like they weren't in as bad shape as all their neighbors who didn't have solar.
Right.
And we were like, well, yeah, that's
kind of the point.
That's the point. And so we actually saw that as well with our systems after Hurricane Ida, and had LSU do a study and found that it really does impact the resilience of the roof, not just the plane where the solar is, but the entire roof because of the added weight. It's kind of deflecting some of the winds.
Exactly.
And it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have said it better myself. What a terrific spokesperson you are for PosiGen. Tell us, obviously there's been exponential growth, and your framing of the domestic content piece is so important. And for a general user, that just means all the supply chain pieces being made here in the United States for all of your installations. But moving forward, how would a rollback of American clean energy tax incentives affect your company?
Yeah, it would be significant. I mean, we've been able to grow over the past few years, even as the residential sector has had some struggles, and we are planning to continue to grow. But rollback on these incentives, whether it's the bonus credits or it's something with the base credits itself, obviously is a huge impact. Some of the markets we're in downtown Philadelphia, we're working on old row homes, small systems, usually having to have some additional costs for those. That only works because of the low-income bonus credit or the domestic content bonus credit that helps us kind of address some of those added costs. We wouldn't be in West Virginia if it weren't for energy communities. I mean, New Orleans is an energy community, and that really helps make that market work with some of the state policies that have been rolled back. So for us, like we see it in every one of our markets, how important every one of these credits are. And when we had the long-term certainty of the base credit itself, that allowed us and our investors to be confident and invest and grow. And that's what's led to our growth from when I joined the company a few years ago, being in 7 states to now being in 15. That's solely because of this.
How many employees do you have?
Over 750.
Wow. So we're not talking about just affecting the final product, the final output for people in low-income communities. We're talking about the impact that it would have on your company and your ability to drive economic development in the states where you do business. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's, about half of our employees are in Louisiana, and then we have them spread out across the states, and it would be really impactful because that's that with all the projects that we're doing, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think people forget that rooftop solar has the most jobs per megawatt that are continuous jobs. They're day after day. We're on roofs. We're working on these projects. We have the long-term O&M. And so it really is something that is providing, a lot of economic activity beyond just what we're saving the homeowners.
And then on the customer side, I'm curious sort of how those types of interactions and conversations have evolved over the years, and in particular in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, you mentioned kind of the energy community angle and some of these other credits and opportunities to have different conversations about why this solution might be beneficial for a homeowner. Has that kind of translated to the demand for PosiGen's offerings? Like, you mentioned resilience and some of these other things that people are thinking about when they are considering whether to go solar beyond just sort of the pocketbook energy savings angle. Has that translated to those customer conversations?
Yeah, I think we continue to see strong demand from consumers. They like the product that we're offering and they want it. And I think that's something that folks need to be aware of is like there's just strong consumer demand and this is not going to go away. People are going to want solar. They want to be able to have the savings that it provides. They want the resilience. And with kind of a more low and moderate income customer base, like storage is definitely more of a challenge because, as I said at the beginning, we underwrite to savings. So even if we add storage, we still need to be able to save folks money. And so that's something that we're still in the early stages as a company of really developing and rolling out. We're doing that in Connecticut through their Energy Storage Solutions program, which has some added incentives for low income. And we've seen significant demand in Connecticut. And we get customers in Louisiana and Mississippi calling about batteries all the time. And while we've done some batteries down there, that's something that we are hoping to move down there as more of these programs open up.
Sure. Well, I think you've done a great job of kind of connecting the dots between, what's happening in Washington and how that can affect a business like yours and the customers that you have. and you've touched a little bit on some of the state programs. What, like, looking 2-5 years down the line, what do you sort of think is the priority for a company like yours in terms of policy change or just sort of growth in general? What's like the long-term view?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a significantly underserved market across virtually every state when it comes to low income. Like, we have a long ways to go at virtually every state. It's not where it needs to be. And so that's something that we will continue to have as our mission. And so I think 2 years from now, the hope is with the Solar for All funding from EPA and the states starting to roll out these programs that are, they're starting to issue RFPs now for some of these. And so we think that's a path to growth, but also an opportunity to really kind of change these markets in a way where they become more equitable. There's more options. And so that's something that we're really excited about and think will, because we do offer something that, and serve the market segments that can't be served by others in the industry. So I think we feel like there's a lot of potential growth. And I think that's one reason we've done so well in the past few years.
That's great.
If a family's interested in working with you all, what do they need to do?
Well, they can go to PosiGen.com and fill out our form. We're happy to chat and see what we can do for them. We are able to serve pretty much anyone. If they have a home and they have a roof that can handle solar and we can save them money, we'll do it.
Well, thanks for joining us and good luck on the Hill today. I hope your message lands as well as it did here. And anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
I would just say that I remain optimistic about 2025 and where the industry goes from here. Like, there's a lot of work to be done, and we can't take anything for granted. But we're all putting in the work, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to come out of it okay. And we're excited.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.